NVIDIA RTX 30 Ampere GPU supply evaporates from the market as secondhand prices increase by up to 200%. Almost a month after Ethereum's proof of stake consensus mechanism went online, the market has been flooded with GPUs. RTX 3060s could be found as low as $99, and if you were willing to take the risk that the GPU might conk out on you after a few months, then there were some seriously sweet deals to be made. There is something that contributed This is something that contributed significantly to one of the biggest declines in first-hand discrete GPU sales since 2009. However, for whatever reason, the second-hand GPU supply seems to be fizzing out, at least on one of the largest second-hand websites out there, eBay. Is this the beginning of the end for dirt cheap pre-mined GPUs? In a story we wrote just a few weeks ago, you could still buy NVIDIA Ampere GPUs at ridiculously cheap rates. An RTX 3060 could be bought for $150 on November 4th, and an RTX 3080 Ti could be bought for as low as $369 on November 7th. These are the prices which have been slowly ticking upwards since the GPU crash a few months ago, when you could buy an RTX 3060 for just $99, direct from a Chinese crypto mine, presumably. Now, personally, I never got any of those. I never heard of the $99 ones, but we'll take their word for it. However, something has changed. Since November 4th, in just 26 days, prices have increased by 200% for the Ampere series. The supply available for sale has completely fizzled out, and as of November 30th, the RTX 3060 used is going for $300, and an RTX 3080 Ti is approaching $800 used. New prices of these cards is even higher, with the RTX 3080 Ti now touching $1,200. This is an incredibly sharp hike in prices in a very short span of time, akin to the hikes seen during the crypto boom. So what could be the reason behind this? Now, I like to do these articles and react to them just along with you guys. That's something that we do. So we're about to find out what they say the reason behind this is. And I have a few ideas. One is that we're no longer getting the cheap GPUs from China, right? But there is other stuff that could be going on along with it, and that's kind of what I'm curious about. I think that if we look at the RTX 4080, for example, it does appear that there is very little, if any, interest in the RTX 4080, to the point to where scalpers have been reportedly stuck with them in their hands. And that's really interesting because the 30 series is starting to dry up on the used market, and the 40 series nobody has interest in except for the 4090, which is obviously selling out, but the 4080 is not. Why would that be? Well, more than likely, in my humble opinion, that's because the memory bus width was cut down from the 3080. That's the best I could see. But in this article, this is the one I'm referring to, scalpers left holding the bag as they struggle to return the 4080s in mass. And they say, you know what they say, a scalper's pain is a gamer's gain. Actually, he just made that up, because scalpers that jumped the gun on the RTX 4080 have been left holding the bag and are struggling to return their purchases or sell them on the open market under the cost basis. The news comes from Reddit via video cards, and Moore's Law is dead. So the MSRP is at $1,200, which is way too expensive, right? And scalpers have made easy profit on much of NVIDIA GPU launches, except for this one. And this is probably the first one where they haven't. But to be completely fair, where the price margin makes no sense, right? And if you look at it in comparison to what we saw with, the memory bus being cut down, the mining performance being worse, it just goes to show that this might still be slightly miner driven. Crazy, right? But we're seeing 30 series dry up on the used market and increase in cost in 200% by 200%. The 4090 is selling, which has good memory bus, right? And the only thing not selling is the 4080s. Very, very interesting, right? So So what's the reason behind this? According to WCCF Tech, this is where the article turns into an editorial. So educated speculation. There could be multiple causes, and the reality is likely a healthy mixture of all of these. First, it is important to differentiate between new stock and used stock. There were quite a lot of Ampere graphics cards sitting in warehouses in the supply chain entirely brand new. Then there was also a metric ton of used pre-mined Ampere GPUs flooding the market in a quantity which should have been, at least in theory, multiple times larger than the new GPUs sitting in warehouses. From what we can see on eBay, the used GPU supply available for sale is mostly gone, which is allowing users to sell brand new Ampere GPUs at incredibly steep prices. Is it possible that supply equivalent to almost 2 years worth of GPUs dumped from mines is all gone? In my opinion, that is exceedingly unlikely. The slow trickle of price increase we're seeing since the last few months was expected to continue well into the first half of 2023. And the fact that has suddenly evaporated is surprising the author of WCCF Tech, or this article. And like I said, I think there's something to be looked at here when we talk about everything, all the distress that's going on in China right now. Because if presumably, like, a lot of these GPUs were coming from mines in China, then that could be a huge cutoff there. Not to mention all the craziness that happened in Russia and with Compass mining and all of that. I'm sure there's other stuff going on there too. And then the fact that I talked to the Hive OS guys, and they said most of these guys were not deleting rigs out. They were just stopping mining. So it does look like there is a certain percentage of GPU miners that are just basically turned off, but waiting, right? Another explanation, and the one I believe to be more likely, I being the author of the WCCF article, says, is that the scalpers investors have started buying up cheap secondhand GPUs in bulk from miners and are reselling them at higher prices. This is an interesting theory. In other words, the lack of secondhand GPUs available for sale is a result of profit taking, and a lot of them might be sitting in a warehouse somewhere. In any case, the situation sucks for the consumers because NVIDIA's 4000 series pricing is quite high, and the RTX 3080 Ti, brand new or used, is available for roughly similar pricing. It also means that NVIDIA and AMD and Intel will not be facing any pressure to reduce the pricing of the 4000 series, something they would have been forced to do if the secondhand GPU market had been viable for another quarter or so. And then I think that he also, so it says, what do you think is the reason behind the sudden price hike? He says all secondhand stock of Ampere GPUs has been used up. Scalpers are buying secondhand stock in bulk and reselling, or NVIDIA's high pricing of the 4000 series has driven resellers higher, or other. Now, technically, I think it's other. I would be more likely to believe that, in this particular case, that miners are sitting on their GPUs, and in addition to that, we have an increase in obviously inflation, which wasn't even mentioned here, which is going to directly affect it. We have the new cards coming out at higher prices, and the fact is, if you want to buy a 4080 or a 4090, you are recommended to purchase a brand new power supply as well, upping the cost of your upgrade. A lot of gamers in general, previous to this, did not upgrade to even the 3000 series. So from a gaming perspective, if you're looking at an upgrade, most people are upgrading from 1080 Ti's, like 10 series still, and going to the 3000 series, or from the 20 series to the 3000 series, but most of them appear to be on 10 series. And the additional cost to go up with a new power supply on top of everything probably drives the demand for 3000 series higher than the demand for 4000 series. And a 4080 is not a reasonably priced card, especially for its performance. It doesn't seem to be something that you would want to purchase at that price. You might as well just push yourself all the way up to the 4090, really. And then, especially if you have to get a power supply, and pretty much all of the ATX 3.0 power supplies are extremely expensive. So why are you going to cheap out on a power supply? Or, if you're buying an expensive power supply already, you're probably just going to buy the top end card. It just makes sense. The 4080 is probably dead on arrival, to be completely honest, due to its just overpricing, I think, in general. This is getting extremely interesting. Start paying attention to it, though. As far as I'm concerned, I'm trying to hodl silicon as hard as possible. I do think that is a viable path forward, especially as we consider the fact that if you own it outright, you don't owe anything on it. You're at an advantage. And then we are at least buffer wise from a mining perspective, safe for one more bull run on the 3000 series, thanks to the fact that NVIDIA nerfed the memory bandwidth on the 40 series, and AMD is just now catching up to the memory bandwidth on the 7000 series, right? So presumably the only real swap you would actually get into, at least I say you, I'm referring to me, like hypothetically, would be swapping out 30 series for 7000 series AMD GPUs potentially, right? But I have a feeling that the AMD GPUs are going to be quite short, right? And that's another point to bring up when we're talking about the 40 series. What are we, or 4080 in particular, and why it's not selling? What can you buy instead of a 4080 that is as competitive, if not better, or at least more than likely, and we'll find out here in about 10 days, at least on paper, looks to outperform the 4080 for a little bit cheaper, right? And also is going to presumably have better availability and use older power supplies, right? On the ATX standard. Well, the 7900 XTX, right? So if you're a gamer right now and you're looking at that set, like you're honestly like sitting down looking at, what the 4080 offers versus what the 7900 XTX offers, you're hard pressed to want to go for a 4080, right? You can spend potentially, $200 less, have better performance, and not have to upgrade your power supply. So if that's your price range, makes way more sense. From a mining perspective, you don't want to be trying to mine with the 40 series very much. It's not going to be conducive to the current infrastructure you have in place. 7000 series makes more sense. So I think that's part of the reason why the 4080 is not selling well, as well. So there you go. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Crypto Mining Show. You can check out the full episode here or more crypto content down here. Also, I'd like you to check out my locals page at sonofatech.locals.com, where you can become a member for free or choose to be a $5 a month supporter that unlocks additional content.